My mind.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Lead, Sell, Grow, everybody. Thank you to all our fans for continuing to listen in and tune in and the comments and the messages that we get from you. By the way, if you're not yet one of those people, be sure to head over to Facebook, join our tribe. It's the Lead, Sell, Grow, the Human Experience Tribe on Facebook. It's a group. We'd love to have you as a part of it. And today we have a extra special show for you. Our guest today knows what it takes to win, and he knows what it takes to lead. After he graduated from college, he started his NFL career with the New York Jets and stayed with them for 4 years. He then went on and played for the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Saints until an injury ended his playing career. But that did not keep him out of football, because he then went on to coach a few different college teams, ended up back in the NFL, coaching for the Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills, and he currently today holds the position of the wide receivers coach for the amazing LA Chargers, who kicked my Ravens' butts in the playoffs a few years ago and stomped Lamar Jackson's chances to go into the Super Bowl. So I'm a little bit of a hater. And yes, Phil was coaching those amazing wide receivers that scored all over my Baltimore team in Baltimore. In addition to football, he's passionate about racial justice and started a program called Ally. Ally stands for Acknowledge, Listen, Learn, Youth. This program is designed to help bridge the relationship between his community and the police in Western Massachusetts, where he was born and raised. Phil, it's an honor to have you here with us today. Thanks for being here, man.
It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me on the show. I didn't spend all 4 years with the Jets, and I'm not currently the receivers coach of the LA Chargers. But other than that, that was the one of the best introductions I ever had. But we're in good shape here, and we're here to talk about a number of different issues. So the introduction is not super important. It's more about the substance and the content and what we're going to push out today.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
Thanks for the correction. So I took a look by the way, how long did you stay with the Jets?
I was there in 01 and 03.
Oh, okay. I understand. Listen.
In Denver in 2 years, in between that, and then to the Saints. So it was a lot of stops, a lot of times getting cut, a lot of times getting released, re-signed, was signed with another team. So it's just the nature of the profession, and you have to have a great deal of resiliency to deal with a profession where you're basically living on a week-to-week contract when you're an undrafted free agent coming out of the University of Maine.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine the stress that takes on a person. So I took
The football
a look.
powerhouse of the University of Maine, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
And Western Massachusetts, also known as a powerhouse for developing football players.
Yeah, I won't say. I mean, I could stand on the table for some really good Maine players, but it's going to be a very short list of people from Western Massachusetts. I won't even get into that one.
So you really made it. I mean, I took a look. I Googled chances of making it into the NFL, and there are a few different stats depending if, chances out of high school, out of college. One statistic stood out, was like 0.2% chance that a player is going to make it all the way to the NFL. So you are out of the, tens of thousands of kids who begin playing football and are passionate about it. What do you think it takes? Like, what separated you from the other kids who wanted to make it as far as you did?
I think it's a consistency, as far as your work ethic and like a burning desire to compete, and be great. I didn't have a lot of idle time. So I played football, but I also did indoor and outdoor track. Is a lot of times people can be derailed by idle time as a devil's playground. So I chose to keep myself ultra occupied with extracurriculars as well, student government, and other, different student athlete body. I was a president of the student athlete committee. So I always tried to keep myself really busy so I wasn't distracted and led down a road where I could be tempted by some things that possibly would derail, my young career. So I think that's super important to articulate here as we're talking about probabilities of success. So keeping yourself busy, I believe sacrifice is super important as well. just be, you're going to be up early in the morning. Again, Maine can be cold. You'd be 20 below. We got a 6 a.m. workout, so you got to put your snow boots on and walk across campus with your big jacket on and get changed up and be ready to run. And they're gonna work you. And you got to be at an 8 a.m. class. So I always talk about college football being one of the ultimate filtration systems into the NFL. Not so much just because of the skill level, but the probabilities of injury when you're repetitively, two a days back in the day, and all the hitting that takes place. The injury rate is very high, and then also the academic schedule and regiment is going to be demanding, and to balance all of that as far as social aspects and all the pitfalls that one may encounter along the way. Um, you kind of get weeded out essentially, when it may have nothing to do with skill. Now, again, they're going to come check on you once you've gotten through all of the hurdles that I've just explained. They're going to see if you can play by working you out, and then also going to put your tape on and watch, all the times the ball's been thrown to you. They're going to watch 4 games to see if you're blocking. They're going to look at the intangibles. So, it's a very scrutinized process, to be honest.
That had to be tough. I mean, the idea of just everything being exposed, I mean, that scares me. I mean, you're out for display every game, every practice, and they're looking for faults, right?
Sure. So I think a lot of people don't have thick skin in the world. So when you start, say in high school, you're at a decent high school and they videotape every practice in games. So you're used to, yeah, your split's not correct on this play. Your stance is off here. You got to do better job here, here. Hey, nice job. And then 5 more corrections precede that. Um, and then that's the process of your life for, the next 10 years or so. Um, you just get used to being constantly critiqued and evaluated. So I feel like that process helps you grow, where you don't take everything so personally when somebody tells you, hey, Phil, I think you could do this better, you could do that better. When you're in another field or when you begin your coaching career, you're just used to being critiqued. You tell some people that haven't been used to that type of scrutiny that something's not good enough, or any type of slight critique at all. It's like World War III is about to occur.
Right.
So
We get offended.
everyone gets offended. Everyone's super sensitive. So I feel like, that helps. That helps with that process, helps with the ego, and it helps take you down a bit. And you understand that most people are trying to help you. And I always believe that discipline is something that people do for you, not to you. Discipline and accountability. That's what people did for me. That's what I have done for my players. It's not something that I do at them, or anything like that. It's something I do for them. It's not something I'm doing to them.
How did you grow up? Like, take me back to, like, when did you start playing football? How old were you?
I was in 5th grade.
5th grade. Okay. So older than a lot of other kids who make it to the NFL. I mean, some kids start at like 5 years old, 4 years old, right?
Yeah, that was the first time it was offered in our town. And I remember like
Wow.
A's and B's and a couple C's. And my father, who raised me, told me that if I didn't have all A's and B's, I couldn't play football because they didn't want me to play football. So it was offered in 5th grade. It was the first year that our town offered it. It was tackle football. So I got my grades right, and I had a tough 4th grade teacher, Mr. Carpenter. He was a real, real hard ass. And so I got my grades right, and I was allowed to play football. And obviously everything else kind of flowed from there.
And so your dad, I mean, sounds like would you consider him strict
Yeah,
or?
very strict. He was a prison dentist. He's son of a Chief Master Sergeant E9, who's buried in Arlington Cemetery. He was a hero from the Battle of Midway. So that's kind of how he was raised. So again, football was natural for me because the discipline factor. So when you have that background, um, and that's I was named after my father. My father was named after him. So when you have that name, then you feel a certain responsibility to act accordingly. We set a good example. I was the oldest of 7 kids, so um, that's how it kind of started for me.
Oldest of 7 kids.
Yes.
Wow. Where was your mom?
What was that?
Where was your mom?
At home raising kids.
Oh, okay. So got it, got it. Okay, so dad's disciplinary, mom's raising kids. 7. Wow. So you start playing football in 5th grade. Any lessons that your dad used to teach you? Like, were there any disciplines, anything you had to do when you first woke up, or like what were your responsibilities as
Yeah.
a kid?
So, some of these stories, like, I don't know if I want to further out this guy. These have been like in the New York Times and stuff over the years, but he was tough, man. Like, he was tough. So a couple of them that were interesting. So I was young. I had a baby tooth, and he was a dentist. He's a prison dentist after he was a general practitioner. But this is the time when he was a general practicing dentist. I had a cavity in the baby tooth. He was so embarrassed that his son had a cavity in my baby tooth that it was just a very superficial cavity, but he drilled on it with no Novocaine to kind of teach me like toughness. So that was interesting. Um, but
Ouch.
it sounds painful,
Ouch.
but that's the truth. Um, and every day it was, make your bed, this and the typical son of a chief master sergeant.
Yeah.
It was all that, and then the book report stories were awesome. So I would use to handwrite these book reports, and so they'd be like, and the same teacher I'm telling you about, Mr. Carpenter, every 2 weeks we had to read like a 200 plus page book. This is 4th grade, and we had to write a 2-page single spaced. My handwriting is abysmal. Like, my penmanship is atrocious. So like, I would go and I'd write these out, and it took me a long time to write, and I'd do the framing and the outlining and all the techniques that you're taught. And so my dad would come home, and from his practice, and he would come home late. He'd go in early, come home late, so I wouldn't see my dad some days, and I'd wake up, and I would just see red ink going all the way across this side and that. So I had to handwrite him over again, sometimes 3 times. Now you got to understand, another book report's coming down the pike in another like 2 weeks. So this kind of taught me about the importance of grammar and penmanship and presentation. So all those things kind of made me who I am today. And do I choose to do those things to my son? No. I mean, the world is a little bit more progressive, uh, and they probably would take my kid from me.
Exactly. It's abuse.
If CSS or something shows up at the house. But it's I look back at it because I have a different perspective. Again, most of my life is always going to be based on perspective, like how I cognitively reframe these different traumatic situations that have happened to me over my life. I try to reframe them. That's one of the more minimal things that I've ever dealt with. There's, on a scale of 1 to 100, that's probably a 2 compared to some of the other things that I've went through. So I've always chosen to try to reframe, moments like that where you're frustrated or you're aggravated or you get angry, because a lot of us have those types of emotions when things aren't going our way.
What
What
helped
could
you to make the big change from, I mean, most of us end up a lot like our parents. And it's just passed around, I mean, generationally, right? I mean, your dad from his dad and prior, what was the wake up where you said, I'm going to be a little bit different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe it's information. And, I didn't live in Agawam my whole life. I went out and experienced the world. I played in NFL Europe, lived in Berlin, lived in, I played or coached for 7 different NFL teams. I've coached for 4 colleges, excuse me. So my perspective, my lens is much broader. So I was able to see things from other people's vantage points, and I've expanded, my scope of how
Mhm.
I view. And again, at the end of the day, anybody can choose, how they want to administer discipline, or how they want to hold people accountable. And it's a choice what you want to do, and how you want to do it, and how you want to deliver the message. And then obviously there's research and studies that show certain things don't work, certain things do work, and then there's a gray area on certain areas. So I try to do research and fill my mind with information that I would find beneficial, that fits genuinely within my own personality structure authentically. Because I'm not going to sit here
Mhm.
and be Chuckles the clown for my kid when he just threw a temper tantrum in the middle of a nice restaurant. That's not happening.
Right.
But
Yeah.
there's relative, uh, there's relative, uh, you know consequences for behavior.
Right. I get a kick out of that because I used to tell my kids all the time, this is restaurant behavior. You
Sure.
have to be just like you're in a restaurant because they knew the line. It's like if you go to a restaurant, you sit quietly. And so then, now they're like 20. I'm saying, hey, restaurant behavior.
Right.
But what about your siblings? Are you making an impact on them? Because to me, I think that's just tremendous where you have
So
that broader view. So yeah,
absolutely.
curious.
Yeah. So that was one of the biggest rules, is set a good example, that we had in the house. So that kind of was a large overarching rule. So if you always could default back to, is that setting a good example? So if you brought home a report card that was substandard, or your room was messy, or like, you generally had to set the tone for the household. And again, he worked those long hours, so the older I got, the more responsibility I had. So I felt like setting a good example was very important. And now I have 6 siblings, and all of them have college degrees. One's an engineer, one's an anesthesiologist at Mass General. I mean, like, one's
Mm.
in financial sector, the other one's in computer programming. The other, and my sister helps run one of the largest hedge funds in Manhattan. So it's
Impressive.
it's interesting how you know it does. People model the behavior, and they strive to be successful in the industries that they have passion in. So I do believe that it is cyclical, and you know pattern modeling is a real thing.
Mm,
Wow. 7 out of 7.
7 for 7.
Parents can be very proud. That's really, really
They should.
amazing.
yeah.
Could you talk back to your dad? Like, what would happen if you saw that red marker and you're like, I am not rewriting this?
Well, that wasn't an option until I got big.
Okay, that wasn't.
Imagine if you were a kid today, what would you have done?
He's not my biological father, so I didn't get bigger than him until I was probably 14, and then then a lot of that stuff stopped. And then again, he had to refocus a lot of his energy on the younger ones anyway. So it was, he had done a lot for me at that point, and at that point in my life, it was, he had to focus some of his energy on some of the other ones. But it wasn't an option, talking back and all that. It wasn't in my nature, anyways. I wanted to please, and I still feel like that too when I'm hired to do whatever job I'm going to be doing, whether it's the head coach hires me, or if I become a head coach in the ownership group and general manager hires me, or the AD and president hire me when I'm at college. There's a undying loyalty, that you want to please them and you want to do a good job. So I think inherently I had that. I wanted to make people happy that cared about me, and believed in me. So that's, some of us have that, and some people are natural dissenters. That's not who I really am. So I wanted to do a good job.
So you've been put in a place of leadership since you were a little kid. I mean, being one of the oldest with your dad always working, you were in that leadership zone. You got 6 other siblings that you're kind of in charge of, modeling for. That's pretty cool. I'm sure that's helped you a ton with your coaching.
Sure.
So now you're a coach, you're coming in, let's say back in the college days, you come into a new team. They're kids, right? First time away from home. Like, we look at them, all we see is, oh, these guys are great players, but there's so much to being a college player than just being a player. Like, you're away from home, you now are a superstar, you're on national TV in a lot of cases. How do you deal with those personalities? And like, what have you found was like a go-to to lead them and connect with them?
Sure. So I think the first thing I do is I give them a piece of my heart before I give them a piece of my mind. So they're gonna we're gonna learn about each other, and like, we're going to get to know each other from on a personal standpoint. They're gonna know how much I care before they know how much I know, and they're not gonna care about how much I know unless they know how much I care. So there's a lot of little things that kind of are cliche, but they're real. So I spend a lot of the time, I'm very vulnerable with my players as far as like some deep things that have happened in the past, that have molded me, beyond those adolescent years, basically from, college to present. So I feel like if I show them what masculinity looks like when you're being vulnerable and when you're able to open up about certain things, rather than what toxic masculinity is, especially in a sport like football. Again, like it goes back to the modeling, So again, I think like over and over and over, being the same guy every day, making it like a safe space for your players to share. And then again, having experience being a football player myself, I understand a lot of the pitfalls that you can go down. And I understand the options that when they get out of work at 5 o'clock and they don't have to be into the building until 7 a.m. I know the options that they have in a city like Miami, Los Angeles, New York, New Orleans. I just get it, so we can have open conversations and honest dialogue about all those things. And, your mind's going left and right. And I promise you, it is all those things. So um, I think giving people a piece of yourself without distillation and just being who you are, that goes a long way. And then at that point, and only then, can you start being demanding and critiquing and red inking and doing all the things that were done to me. But again, the relationship has to be there. So if you just start branding people like with the way that you feel things are going to be, because that's what your background is and that's how you do things, they'll tune you out, and that's not what we're trying to get done.
It's so amazing, Harry, because like this is how easy is it for a football coach to know that those players want to be there way more than the coach actually literally needs them, because there's thousands of others that would gladly
Right.
take that spot. To hear you say what you just said, like, hey, I really am going to be vulnerable and authentic and give them a piece of my heart before I start teaching them and expecting stuff out of them. And then we look at the business world where it's complete opposite. Like we want good, for example, in sales, you want good salespeople. They're really hard to find. And as soon as a young manager becomes manager, a lot of times they just use that title of manager to set expectations and technically drive people out.
Sure. And I've spoken to Intuitive Surgical. My wife worked there for 8 years. I've spoken to their sales team, just like this on Zoom calls with 30 or 40 boxes. And, it was a little bit more formal about what they wanted for me to talk about. But again, I'll talk to them within the framework of my own personality structure and about what I feel is important. And a lot of these same topics came up.
Huh. What
Yeah.
why
So
did they have you
I'm
talk to
sorry.
the sales team?
Yeah.
Sorry, Harry.
Why wouldn't they?
Okay.
They want to be
No,
motivated.
but well, what did they expect out of it? What were they hoping to get out of it?
I think they just wanted to hear, as far as the work ethic is concerned and what it takes to be great. I mean, at the end of the day, success to me has always been about putting a gallon of water in a pool for your entire life, and eventually that pool is full. So, that like you're not going to wake up and have a client base, completely built up. You're not going to wake up and have everything perfected and skilled. I mean, I've been doing this since I was in fifth grade. I've only coached receivers, and I've been doing that for 14 years. And I'm completely obsessed and passionate about what I do. And these hours are tireless. 6 a.m. to midnight. That's a very common time frame when you're a young coach in the NFL. So, and in college as well at the Division I level. So, I think just from a motivational standpoint and having I guess the success of the Hard Knocks show, it had some wow factor. So they invited me on, and they've been really good to our family. So we obliged.
Oh, what's that about?
Hard Knocks?
I know the show, but yeah, what's the story behind there? Do we
Um,
lose? Oh,
no,
okay. Sorry.
no, I didn't. It was we were featured on Hard Knocks, and there was some candid moments there between myself and the players as far as being honest and trying to motivate people about life-changing money being on the line here, and ask them to do a simple task like blocking and how critical it was. And then that clip was reinforced by the head coach, and then it was a kind of a viral moment for any receiver coach across the country as far as wow, this guy even demands these little things from these guys. One guy's making 20 million, this guy's making 15, and he's on them. And I love those kids. They're not kids, I call them kids, but they're men. But I treat them more like my sons. So that was. I think a lot of people saw that and were like, wow, we'd like to inject some of that into what we're trying to do in a corporate structure. So that's probably some of the reasoning why they would want
Oh,
to.
that's great. So where can we find that? Is that on YouTube somewhere?
HBO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just Google it. It'll come up.
Okay.
No, that's amazing, Phil. So if you had to get into a corporate world right now, and you were in a leadership position, what would be a couple of things you would immediately start doing to
Sure.
get the team going?
Sure. So, I'd probably talk about a few things. I would say first thing, come to work with a great attitude. Like don't be Debbie Downer. I don't want that type of energy around me. So come with a great attitude. I don't always feel great. We all might have our own things going on, but try to compartmentalize and check your problems at the door and try to be, in a good headspace. So whatever that takes, whether it's proper rest, whatever you got to do to have a great attitude, let's do that. I would say let's have a general appreciation and kindness towards one another. So just respect, please and thank you. Just let's have this typical decorum back and forth where you'd be surprised how far just manners and general appreciation for even the smallest tasks, like the food services people in the building, the maintenance staff, the janitorial staff, the IT department. Thank you so much. The Christmas presents, try to remember their names. So just a general appreciation and kindness. So I always taught it to the next thing would be like, you got to show respect to get respect. So like, no one's going to just give you respect for something you've done in the past. Like, what have you done for me now lately? Nobody cares about what you did before. All that stuff you read from Google, that's in the past. That's not current. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. Just what am I doing today to get better? So I think that's really important. If you're a good leader, you're going to take ownership. So even if it's a gray area and somebody's late with this or the printer was broken and don't get frazzled. Listen, it's my fault. I could have came in earlier. I could have printed them last night. I should have had the hard drive check. I should have backed it up. Find a way to take ownership for something that's not going perfectly. All right. And if right now, if it crashes and my computer freezes up, hey, I need 5 minutes, guys. Look composed. You might be tearing up inside. You might be losing sales left and right. Stocks are plummeting, but try to exude positivity and composure. I think that's super important. And I just say provide a nurturing, mentoring environment. So if you're at a certain point in your life, a lot of people that I've been around have done one of two things. They've either thrown the ladder down for me to help me get up to their level, or they pulled it up after themselves and they felt threatened or didn't want you to be a part of it. I've always been a guy who takes a lot of pride. If I have a graduate assistant or an assistant position coach who I've been tasked to bring along, and he's got to do a lot of the clerical work and take some of the work off my plate as far as the typing, which I've done before too. I've been a GA and I've been an assistant position coach. So I understand, again, the role they're in. But again, I want them to get promoted. I want them to make more money. I want them to be able to run their room. I give them an opportunity to speak. I give them a segment to talk. So, keep the ladder down, let people pull people up with you, no crabs in a bucket mentality where everyone's kind of pulling each other down. That there's no way to succeed like that. So I think those are a few of the things that I would try to bring to a corporate setting if I was involved.
Those are awesome
things.
Yeah, I mean, the things that you bring about are such great signs of leadership. I mean, I'm thinking about the one about the printer, especially because Eric and I have a history dealing with the printer industry. But it is hysterical about how people blame the printer, and you just handled it so well and say, I could have done it last night, right? But no one does that. They want to blame the printer, or they'll find a way to blame even the most inanimate object for a problem, right?
I know. An inanimate object never sent me a paycheck, so like you can't.
Dude, I found myself
so what
almost
is the
doing that.
benefit? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you go
No,
ahead.
just the other week I had to catch myself because my kid missed the bus because I let him stay up too late. But obviously, I didn't mention that when I was getting a speeding ticket for rushing to take him to school. And I had the audacity to be like, well, because he missed the bus, I was speeding. I was like, nope, I was speeding because I was speeding, and he missed the bus because I let him stay up too late.
Right. And so with
Oh,
that,
my
what you're
goodness.
doing there, that's a cognitive reframe. And that's important because like lazy human behavior is, well, I did that because you did, so that's, to me, that's D level thinking. You know what I mean? We're trying to get ourselves, to 400 level classes here. So it's cognitively reframing. Yeah. Did he contribute to you speeding? Should he? Yeah. But, he was already late.
Right. I could have just drove normally. He had nothing to do with it. I think honestly, I think it's the cop's fault. If we're being honest. And I think the radar machine was broken. So
Well, we appreciate their service. It's a tough job.
You don't have your data to appeal that. So good luck with that.
I took the school.
I like to
Was
drive
that-
fast, so I just build two tickets a year into the budget, and then if I get pulled over, I just plead for forgiveness. I know I drive fast. I'm sorry, sir, and I got to slow down. I don't get this. This car's been stuck in LA traffic for 3 years. I'd like to stretch it out a little bit.
Yeah, it's different here, man. It's a bigger budget because. So for those of you who don't know, Phil and I live on the same street right now. So the school is just a few miles away from the house,
Right.
and literally it's an $890 ticket, but
Wow.
he's gonna drop it to 9 over, and it's $145 ticket. Also 3 points if I don't go to driving school, and if I go to driving school, no points. So I'm like, I'm going to driving school.
Yeah.
No points.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, there's a little bit of the negotiation tactics, and then just being polite. Sometimes, never underestimate the power of genuine kindness, and just again,
Absolutely.
accountability. It's just accountability. I was driving too fast. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Why the importance of the accountability on even the minor things?
I don't know. I just feel that I feel strongly about that. I just feel like
Mhm.
we can move forward to something else of greater importance if you just move. Like if we just move. I want to move off of it. Like
Mhm.
not, I don't want to worry about who gets the blame for something,
Yeah.
like that's just not a productive activity. It's just not a productive practice for me. I don't engage in it. It's just something I
Yeah.
don't engage in. And
Do you try to encourage others to follow the same, just even on, like the athletes that you're coaching
for sure,
to
yeah,
take responsibility even for the minor things?
all the time. And the best ones
Yeah.
do it. I remember Keenan Allen, I had a system. So if he made an error, which I could see it, but if he went like
Mhm.
this, like from the field, he put his finger over his head, like my fault, it was
Mhm.
not a squash, and so everybody got to the point where if there was an error, I'd have to wait until see the pictures.
Oh, is that why they do that? So, I mean, I was kind of curious if they're like,
who they is, but I know why Keenan and Mike and the guys I coached when
right.
they put their hand up. Some guy, I mean, it's easy for me. That's what he chose. The way he chose to communicate with me was that he was in the wrong, whether it was practice or the game, was that. And then again, if I was
Yeah.
wrong with the personnel in practice, they got that coach. Nope, that's not them. That's me. I sent the wrong personnel grouping in, which will happen in practice once in a while. So I just think that that's a culture of accountability, which
Mhm.
we can move to the next task when people are, instead of wondering, whoa, what's going on? Who, you tell the
Right.
coordinator, hey, Keenan missed his block on the nickel, and he knows he was wrong. He told me, and you'd be shocked about how fast the coordinator and head coach move to the next play when they know what went wrong and we can correct it on film. It's, what are you going to do? Pistol whip the kid? He made an error.
Right.
I see Lamar doing it. Usually he looks at whoever he made the error with or the coach, and he just pounds his chest like
Sure.
that was on me.
Yeah.
And it's a very diffusing, if you're the receiver and you look back at the quarterback and he's like, or he's like, you know, and he's giving you a gesture
Yeah.
like
Like Tom Brady, man.
oh,
You
and
look like Tom Brady there for a minute.
I'm not gonna name names.
He's my fave.
No names here. We
Of course.
but like when it but you know, it's just it's easier. It's easier
Yeah.
to go to the huddle and get another play when somebody's said, hey, you know, we're all trying our best. I mean, if you know
Right.
we're gonna make an error.
Well, so I've got to ask about the whole adult situation. I mean, not that these guys aren't adults, but they've been raised around coaching, right? Most adults have not been raised around coaching. And so if you were in a situation where people have been prima donna-esque, like which is a lot of people in sales, and you take over, I mean, imagine like you're taking over a sales team and you've got all these people that really finger point and they just want, the top spot. They're the types frequently that will take the ladder and lift it up so no one else can,
Sure.
rival their position. How would you suggest helping people like that to see, the whole idea of teamwork, positivity, looking after others? I mean, is that even possible?
Yeah, for sure, it's possible. That's culture. You know, you have, but changing a culture that sounds like toxic culture to me. Where I IGM, I call it. I got mine.
Okay.
You know, like that never works. That doesn't work in a team environment or culture. So you just have to almost come with a whole new mission statement. You have to hold people accountable to it. And again, if you see individual behavior that is not in line with your core values or your mission statement, I feel as a manager or a leader, or the CEO or whoever it is, the head of sales, the director of sales, director of whatever, has to hold people accountable and have to bring them in and be like, hey, listen, John, Sue, you guys are our top two guys, but you're so competitive with each other that it borderline negative at times. So, we just have to I think it's about being consistent, being the same guy every day. So you're just if the behavior continues, like listen, like I've dealt with some guys who need their statistics. I'd be honest with them. Like, listen, you know, that's not going to work for you here at this organization. I mean, it's just not, and it may work as long as they're financially committed to you. But once your guaranteed money is up, they're going to cut you or they're going to trade you because you're tough to work with, and that's going to go to the next team. And again, at the end of the day, the longevity of your career is going to be impacted. You're going to shorten your career just by the way that you walk in the building and demand more. So once you get a reputation for being a person that's difficult to work with or has a selfish mentality, you don't think that people, it's called a reference. I knew what that was when I was 20 years old. So you don't think that people check with you can't bounce from Fortune 500 company to Fortune 500 company being, a jerk and being difficult to work with. So I believe if you don't need my reference at your next job, then you can continue your behavior. Bottom line. And we got a lot of stuff to do with the rest of the day. Ironically enough, the door is in the same place as it was when we started this meeting. So head back to your desk.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. Harry, the problem with the corporate world, I'm listening to Phil and, they set the culture of IGM. I got mine because President's Club, it's an individual thing. Quotas. It's not like your receivers each have a quota for how many touchdowns. Like if you don't score 3 touchdowns this game, you're fired, right?
Right. But again, a lot of the contracts are based on individual numbers. So you have to, it's a very delicate balance, and you have to, I mean, it's very comparable to sales. I mean, it really
Yeah,
is.
I could see that.
It is.
It's a numbers led, business. No one's giving out a multi-million-dollar contract for somebody who doesn't have big numbers. But if you can get big numbers within a team structured environment and be a good person, then you're going to get a longer deal with the same team that drafted you. If you're a jerk, you're going to get a short-term deal for less money with a team that probably didn't draft you. And then once they realize the product that they got, they're going to try to replace you. So you're never going to have that security that you really, really want if you don't learn to buy in. And I've talked to guys who made a ton of money and they didn't listen early in their careers, and they'd be like, man, I was young. I was trying to grow up. I was trying to figure it out, and I really
Mhm.
regret some of my early career behaviors. And they figured it out towards the end of their career. And you know, finances isn't everything. Sometimes
Right.
like coming to work, with a good work environment is paramount. So, like at this point in my career, I don't really want to walk into a job where I don't enjoy the room of people that I'm spending time with. When I'm away from my two kids and my wife, I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit there if I'm working from 6 a.m. to some nights midnight, getting myself 4.5 hours of sleep. Like I come in there and see some guy who doesn't appreciate, the situation he's in. Like, if you think I'm candid now, I had 8 hours of sleep. You could imagine how I would be on 4 hours.
4 hours.
What I would say to you. So
You
that's
turn into the prison dentist.
for sure.
Let me get that cavity. That is too funny. Phil, I personally don't believe that anybody can get to where you've gotten to without setting goals. Do you have like a systems or a plan, or was it all just by luck? You somehow ended up in the NFL as a coach, like, oh shit,
All
how
by
did I
luck.
get here?
No, goal setting is very important. I think setting attainable goals, setting realistic goals is important. And again, that's probably it's hard to set. Like, well, I need to be this by then and all that, because I think that puts like undue pressure on yourself. But setting goals is important. Just setting attainable goals. That's the one thing that I can do, and I usually like to write them out, and I would typically put it on my mirror, because in the bathroom, because that's where you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth. Hopefully, some of you guys do, but you know, you first thing you do is brush your teeth or splash some water in your face and then jump in the shower or whatnot. So I just put them up there, or somewhere where they're going to remind you, and maybe like a motivational quote at the bottom or a Bible verse that inspires you. Because the reality is there are no get rich quick schemes out there. You got to put the work in, and if you're not willing to put the work in and set goals and have a high standard and demand a high standard from others that you're responsible for, then I don't believe in long-term success. You might hit a lucky stock portfolio play or something like that, but over the long period of time, it's like hitting a hot hand at the craps table. I'm not going to put my 401k on the probability that that's going to happen again.
When did you start your goal setting discipline?
I've always done that. It's a sports psychologist I worked with in college always told me to do that. So I felt like writing them down was important because it made it real and made it tangible. So probably over 20 years.
Oh wow.
Mm.
So what were the goals back then compared to what they are
It
now?
was high jump 7 feet. Like I wanted to high jump 7 feet. I wanted to get over, a 3.5 GPA. They were
Can
metrics.
you high jump 7 feet?
I did, yeah, many times.
Wow.
I can't now for sure, not with my round behind, but I could. And again, but so yeah, there were different things. Catch this many balls. Um, be involved in 3 extracurriculars, non-sports related. There are different things that you try to round out who you were as a human being. Because I didn't think I was going to play in the NFL for sure. I just was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go get a job. So like I did all the career fairs and I tried to do my best to impress as many people as I could so I could, get a good job coming out of school. And that was, I went to business school. I have a degree in marketing. So, that was important to me. The academics were important because, they couldn't take that from me.
Yeah,
Man,
it's
that's
great
deep.
stuff. What do you think about looking back at your career? I mean, because you really started your career in age 10,
Right.
right? I mean, it's really amazing if you think about being starting football and then making, game after game, practice, season after season, and now, 20 plus years later, I'm not sure how old you are, but I mean, you get the idea.
42 next month.
Yeah. So you've been around the game for 30 something years, right?
Sure. Yes.
I mean, so you're well versed in the game. And I
Correct.
think a lot of athletes are like this. But then when they can't play anymore, and this is a thing that I wonder, and I'm curious about, because you see some of these athletes turn to drugs or they turn to
Sure.
ways to make the millions, and it's rare, granted. But what do you think happens in an athlete's mind when they can't be in front of the crowd anymore?
Here, it's a great question. So the reality of that is there's a huge like bout of depression that you're going to go through, like because like the highs of being involved in that at that level, and then not having that, you're going to try to fill the void with something. So, a lot of people fill it with drugs, alcohol, women, high rate of divorce, at that time. I know when I had my neck injury and in 2005, I got into commercial real estate sales. I hated it. Um, it wasn't for me. I needed, like,
Mhm.
I missed football. I missed the structure. I missed the competition. It just it wasn't for me. So, I had to go back and start basically at the basement, where I volunteered as a coach, and then
Mm.
I signed my first contract at Maine for $12,000 a year. Now this is like 2007, so I mean
It's not
that's
like
not
1977. I mean,
right.
12,000 yeah.
So like I mean you're literally going on a road trip. You're dragging Powerade coolers past a picture of yourself. You know what I mean? So your ego and your humility has to raise up. Your ego has to
Oh,
go down. So I feel like those are the things that a lot of people aren't willing to do. And then so say you had the financial resources where you don't have to work again, and you made like that 20 or $30 million, and it's just making money and you can live. There's a void.
mhm.
There's just a time, like you're not used to having a ton of time. You're not used to like being present all the time. So either you fill it with, like, I've had players who are now like into bodybuilding or into like, you know, triathlons and I've had other people go the other way, that I know, and that just assume have the whole world, on a string, and they just can't handle life without football or without whatever, um, that they were doing, professionally, and just from a time standpoint, or time management and discipline, without having that structure, they fall down, a real slippery slope, and it's tragic.
Is there, I mean, I just think I forgot the guy's name, but he just passed away in a hotel room.
Vincent Jackson,
Horrible. Yeah. I mean,
and I
superstar, right?
love
Superstar
him.
wide
He's
receiver not that long ago.
one of the most fantastic human beings that I've ever met. Like, I loved Vincent, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what I was thinking about. And
Yeah.
honestly, when I was saying that, but you know, well respected in the community, awesome person, charitable, generous, kind, always had a smile, worked extremely hard. Um, you know, to see that happen to him, it just it makes me even more cautious about all
Hmm.
the other players. Like, I never coached Vincent, but when he was a free agent, we tried to sign him in Miami. He ended up signing with the Bucks, but he was coming from the Chargers. So, we had conversations, and then obviously being in Tampa, um, I would come back up here. Oftentimes, I worked at USF, and then I'd see Vincent. We had mutual friends, so uh,
Hmm.
I just never would have thought. He's just such a wonderful, fantastic human being, and I'm just heartbroken and gutted for his family.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame. I mean, I really appreciate you sharing that. I mean, the outside of the fans, we look sometimes, right? I mean, I've been around it. I know I've said it myself. It's like, well, you're making millions of dollars. What are you complaining about? Because the average person is not even sniffing what you make in a season in their entire life,
Right.
right? So we have this side of us, but then on the other side, it's like, who'd want to live that life after, right? You want to live it while you're a superstar. But if you have that glory and fame, and then to walk away and just be a regular guy, you know, or a
Yeah.
woman, like if you're whatever, a woman's superstar tennis player or swimmer or something, it's like there should be some kind of counseling or
They,
therapy for
they
those types
offer it.
of people.
They do offer it, and there's
Yeah.
lots of programs at the NFLPA, and there's player development people. There's, to help you transition. They have career fairs. They have a ton of resources that
Hmm.
are devoted just for that, because I mean, former players struggling, in their first 2 years, outside of the league is not new
Yeah.
by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. So, it's just, to me, it's just a mental health thing that most people won't ever understand. And, you really don't have to understand. It's not your life, like
Right.
no one's asking you for your sympathy. It's just something that other people are going through. And, um, you know, they probably just ask to respect their privacy. But, those are real issues that almost all of my former teammates have gone through in some various degrees, including myself.
Right.
When you stop playing and you have to find something else to do with your life. And some guys aren't as equipped to transition to other career fields. That's just the
Yeah.
reality. And
Yeah.
then that's the truth.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I
you outlined those 5 or 6 things earlier about attitude, hard work, the way you treat people. Not everyone. I mean, it's like you just rattled them off like I'm trying to look at a list and do it. You just rattled them off like they're part of your soul, right? And that's probably why you're successful. I mean, where you continue to be successful is that you have these core values, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's everyone's different. So
Mm-hmm.
when you and again, like authenticity, um, what you see is what you get. That's where um, I feel a lot of people try to be somebody they're not, or they try to model themselves after somebody else, and they try to take on too much of their own personality structure. Like I'll take bits and pieces of things from each one of the coaches that I've worked for, as far as the way that they install or the order that they put their presentation, or maybe the borders and the outlines or fonts or quotes, or where they put their motivational video. But, if it doesn't fit who I am as a person, then I will never use it. I feel like people will sniff that out. I know I will. If I don't feel like you're an authentic person, I will completely tune you out. Um, and it's just like, to me, that's one of the, like, if I thought somebody was fake or disingenuous, to me, there's really no other insult. There's no name that you can call anybody besides if you're disingenuous or you're a fake person or you're not authentic. Um, that's just something that I choose not to be. So when I try to put together those core values, I try to make sure that those are something that things I believe in, or things that have made my life easier, or I've seen make my life easier, or people around me easier, or if they were lacking and we didn't have them, I saw the deterioration of the team. And I said, if I have a chance to ever impact the team and be a real leader, because a lot of people think that just because you have a title makes you a leader. That's not true. you know to being a real leader is about being the same person every day and bringing your core values to the table every day. That title doesn't make you anything. It makes you higher paid than the next guy, which we've already discussed, that finances are going to be the most important thing. If we're talking about leadership, that's not always about bank account or titles. It's about actions.
Is it okay in your book to, well, in your mind to have people on your team that don't value or have different core values from you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't make anybody have, like, a core value is like, if I'm hiring somebody, then they better have those core values. But I'm not going to project my core values on a peer, you know. But here's the truth about that. So there's peer-to-peer accountability. So if we don't win enough football games, I'm sitting here on our street hanging out in the 2021 season because we didn't get enough games won last year with the Chargers. So the reality is I have a responsibility as a coach to the other 20 families and their children, so they're not uprooting their kids, to put forth my maximum effort towards my core values. And so my players are playing the best football on Sundays. So, and I'm assuming that that's being done in all the other position rooms. So those are like, the peer-to-peer accountability doesn't mean like they have to have the same core values as me. It just means that they probably have very similar ones, and they're working extremely hard, as we all do, to make sure that we're instilling those on our players and the people that we're responsible for.
Do
Talk
you
about
find that most
pressure.
people are very clear on
Yeah.
those, on their core values?
If they're not, then it's a rudderless ship, to be honest, isn't it?
I think
Um,
so.
so I think if I was, that'd probably be the first question I'd ever ask. Like, what do you stand for? What do you believe in? And if a person's like, like, okay, next candidate, I don't know who this guy. You know, like, and again, I believe in hard work. I believe in what dedication. I believe in sacrifice. What I believe in this. I believe in long hours. I believe in being a good whatever. Whatever they.
Right.
You know, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. So stand up on your own 2 feet. Put some bass in your voice and tell us what you believe in.
I love it.
Yeah, seriously, I gotta have my kids listen to this one. This is such a great. Yes, yeah, you're awesome.
By the way, so I met Phil initially not in the neighborhood, but my kids are playing football for Under Armour's Under the Light, and Phil's coaching the team, and the team you guys are coaching are the Ravens, right?
Right. Yes.
So I'm like, so this is how stupid I am. I'm here in Florida, and I notice a bunch of people wearing Ravens hats, and I'm like, oh, hey, you guys are from Baltimore?
Okay,
They're like, no, our team's the Ravens.
that's a riot.
Yeah.
That's what 2020 to 2021 was a big change for everybody. I went from coaching the receivers at the LA Chargers to coaching the kindergarten through second grade Ravens flag football team. So, but it's been.
But did they win more games?
I don't even know what they did.
Is your job secure?
They're probably going to move. I'll probably get fired from there too.
Oh my
But
goodness!
I got to spend a lot of time with my son, and that was the that was the best part about being. I never been able to coach my son. I never been able to drive him to and from game. We have practices and then pizza parties and stuff, and it's invaluable. Those things are invaluable because again, like if you don't have that balance, that work-life balance, which the NFL does it's almost impossible to do.
Right.
This year's been a real big blessing in a number of ways, for that.
And is he, I mean, so what I was going to say is your son is probably one of the most mature 7-year-olds, right? He's not 8 yet.
No, he just turned 7.
He just turned 7. He's probably the most mature. Like you just talk to him for 2 minutes and you'll realize that this kid is like focused and serious and just the way he speaks. I don't think I've ever heard another 7-year-old speak the way he speaks. It's just, I don't know, just a whole different level of maturity. It's like he's reading, books that are meant for adults.
He's doing book reports on 200-page books every 2 weeks, and his dad's got a red highlighter.
He is. I would agree. With Eric on that one. He's a special kid, and the teachers always talk just like that about him. So my son he's a fun kid to be around because he's very precocious and he'll say some things that will, like, he's funny and he always wants to make me laugh. So he tries to find my sense of humor and he's creative about things. So having that time with him, it's been wonderful.
That's great.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's the big responsibility in life right there.
How could our listeners follow you? Like, where should they go? What should they?
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Phil McGeoghan. And that's basically my platform. And just if I, once in a while I'll tweet something out, a picture or Happy Father's Day, or, I don't do a whole lot of preaching on there and motivational stuff. But that's just how I choose to do it. A lot of, UFC retweets and things that I find inspiring or whatnot. But that's it, just on Twitter. And, I'm not a super exciting follow. Probably a little bit more dynamic in person, having a conversation than I am on social media. It's just not really my deal, but I am there.
Awesome. Who's your favorite UFC fighter?
Ooh, man, now you're gonna get me in trouble with a lot of people.
Oh boy.
A
Who are a couple of the top?
Okay, there we go. I like that. So Israel Adesanya, I love him. Kamaru Usman, Francis Ngannou. I've gotten a chance to spend time with Kamaru and Francis. Rashad Evans is one of my close friends, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So I've gotten a chance to meet a ton of these guys over the years. Those are probably my favorite guys right now. The guys are, such a Dustin Poirier. I love just his whole story and the way that he so resilient. Max Holloway is very exciting fighter. So there's just you can gain so much from watching these fighters because the discipline, the structure, what they have to sacrifice, the weight cuts, the pay is not great in comparison to other sports in this country. It's good, but compared to other sports, they're not making as much money as they probably should be. So I think that you can get some motivation out of that because that they really love it and they really are passionate about what they're doing. So
Yeah.
I think again that becomes a little bit more pure to me. So
Man, Rashad Evans. So I think it was one of my favorite knockouts that he had. Either
Yep.
I want to say it was Chuck Liddell.
You got Chuck in Atlanta and won the
Oh
belt.
man, Chuck was unloading the way Chuck does, and he was just throwing. Rashad was blocking up against the cage, and then he just landed one.
Overhand right. And
Overhand right.
Overhand right, knocked him out cold, won the belt. And I think, and I don't want to miss his story up, but I'm almost positive that when Rashad was checking into the hotel, he couldn't find his credit card, and Chuck paid for his room for that fight because Chuck was the big star and making a ton of money, and Rashad was the number one contender and done a good job of working his way up. And he was like sitting there, and Chuck was like, "Don't worry about it." And they're about to fight, so that's everybody's intimidated, by Chuck, and they think that he's like, this one type of person, but in actuality, he's a good guy, and he ended up winning the belt off him. So,
wow.
If you ask Rashad about Chuck, he's going to say nice things.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, thank you so much, Phil, for giving us your time.
No
I thought this was great. Really appreciate
Likewise. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys got something out of this for your listeners.
Oh yeah, we got one or two things.
We did. We definitely did.
You're
Not every
amazing.
day that you get to talk to a person who's achieved what you achieved and played at the highest levels and coached people who are playing at the highest levels and shared some of your wisdom and mindset with us. So that's what it's all about. And we can apply it in every aspect of our lives, man, from parenting to business leading to leading our own organizations. So thank you so much, Phil.
Oh, you're very welcome. Anytime, Eric. Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you, Harry.